Mormon leaders often portray those who leave the faith in the worst possible light, often implying that apostates are weak, deceived, or even under Satan's influence. Hey guys, this is D-Days with the Mormon News Roundup. Thanks so much for stopping by. Rather than acknowledging the legitimate intellectual, moral, or ethical reasons that people might leave the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, Mormon leaders often frame leaving the church as a failure of character, faith, or endurance. These statements reveal a broader pattern of dismissing former members as lost souls who have chosen a harder, less fulfilling path, rather than thoughtful individuals who have reconsidered their beliefs. In this episode, I'm going to highlight the top 10 times that the leaders of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints dumped on people who love the faith. Let's go.
Welcome to the Mormon News Roundup, your go-to source for the latest headlines and critical analysis on all things LDS.
Breaking news.
Join D-Days.
Mormon News Roundup.
That's talent on loan from Kolob every Sunday and Monday night.
We will uncover the truth behind the news that matters most to the Mormon community.
In our number 10 clip, Nelson is going to imply that those who leave the church do so because they lack discipline, or they just don't understand the blessings of being a Mormon church member. This myopic perspective dismisses the genuine struggles of those who leave, reducing their faith crisis to a matter of laziness or selfishness, rather than an honest search for truth.
Dear brothers and sisters, I grieve for those who leave the church because they feel membership requires too much of them. They have not yet discovered that making and keeping covenants actually makes life easier. Each person who makes covenants in baptismal fonts, in temples, and keeps them has increased access to the power of Jesus Christ. Please ponder that stunning truth.
In our number 9 talk about the evils of leaving Mormonism, Packer once compared those who become inactive to someone who picks up a club and repeatedly strikes themselves in the face. This metaphor paints ex-Mormons as irrational, self-destructive, and petty, rather than recognizing that many leave due to deeply held concerns about doctrine, history, or personal integrity. Instead of acknowledging legitimate grievances, Packer's analogy belittles those who step away, making their departure seem foolish and self-inflicted.
Around us we see members of the church who have become offended. Some take offense at incidents in the history of the church or its leaders and suffer their whole lives unable to get past the mistakes of others. They do not leave it alone. They fall into inactivity. Somewhat like a man being hit by a club. Offended, he takes a club and beats himself over the head with it all the days of his life. How foolish, how sad. That kind of revenge is self-inflicting. If you have been offended, forgive it, and leave it alone.
At number 8, we have a classic from Neal Maxwell. This oft-repeated phrase is used to discredit members who openly discuss their faith transition. Rather than acknowledging ex-Mormons' legitimate criticisms of the church, Maxwell frames them as obsessive or bitter, ignoring the simple reality that people who leave Mormonism want to speak out because they still have loved ones who are in the church, and they want to warn people about the problems that they themselves experienced firsthand.
Some real tares even masquerade as wheat, including the few eager individuals who lecture the rest of us about church doctrines in which they no longer believe. They criticize the use of church resources to which they no longer contribute. They condescendingly seek to counsel a brethren whom they no longer sustain. Confrontive, except of themselves, of course, they leave the church, but they cannot leave the church alone.
At number 7, Pace takes Maxwell's oft-repeated sentiment further by suggesting that leaving in and of itself is not enough. Satan's goal isn't complete until ex-Mormons are in open rebellion against Jesus. This paints former members as adversaries under demonic influence rather than individuals who have undergone sincere faith transitions. It fosters a culture of distrust towards those who leave, making it easier to dismiss their legitimate concerns without serious consideration.
It seems history continues to teach us you can leave the church, but you can't leave it alone. The basic reason for this is simple. Once someone has received a witness of the Spirit and accepted it, he leaves neutral ground. One loses his testimony only by listening to the promptings of the evil one, and Satan's goal is not complete when a person leaves the church, but when he comes out in open rebellion against it.
At number 6, Elder Gay says that those who leave the church are doomed to a life of despair and regret, reinforcing the belief that apostates always regret their decisions. In reality, many ex-Mormons report feeling greater peace, autonomy, and happiness after leaving. Gay's rhetoric is used to try to instill fear in active members, discouraging them from questioning the faith or listening to those who have left.
Finally, I believe that to take upon ourselves his name, we must trust him. At a meeting I attended one Sunday, a young woman asked something like the following: "My boyfriend and I recently broke up and he chose to leave the church. He tells me he has never been happier. How can this be?" The Savior answered this question when he said to the Nephites, "But if your life is not built upon my gospel and is built upon the works of men or upon the works of the devil, verily I say unto you, you will have joy in your works for a season, and by the end cometh." There simply is no enduring joy outside the gospel of Jesus Christ.
Maxwell's statement here reflects the assumption that those who leave the church will one day regret their error and return to the fold. This viewpoint disregards the deeply personal and often difficult process that many go through in leaving, and it assumes that faith transitions are based on temporary confusion or misunderstanding. It fosters a truly ridiculous belief that former members are not truly lost to the faith, but are simply in a waiting period before they return to the church.
Newcomers, you may even see a few leave the church who cannot then leave the church alone. Let these few departees take their brief bows in the secular spotlight. Someday they will bow deeply before the throne of the Almighty, confessing that Jesus is the Christ and that this is his work. Meanwhile, be unsurprised if, as the little stone seen by Daniel rolls relentlessly forth, some seek to chip away at it.
Ballard's statement here is part of a larger narrative, which is used to try to teach active members that they should trust in the church's teachings and avoid all questions. It implies that all of the problems in church history and difficulties in reconciling Mormon doctrine will one day be magically resolved, without acknowledging the fact that for many people these contradictions simply cannot be reconciled. This suggests a lack of genuine recognition of the struggles many face when they leave, reducing the complex individual decisions for leaving to a simplistic narrative about time healing all things.
If any one of you is faltering in your faith, I ask you the same question that Peter asked. To whom shall you go? If you choose to become inactive or to leave the restored church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, where will you go? What will you do? The decision to walk no more with the church members and the Lord's chosen leaders will have a long-term impact that cannot always be seen right now. There may be some doctrine, some policy, some bit of history that puts you at odds with your faith, and you may feel that the only way to resolve that inner turmoil right now is to walk no more with the saints. If you live as long as I have, you will come to know that things have a way of resolving themselves.
Wilcox's statement underscores the idea that Mormonism is uniquely valuable to the world, and that leaving it results in a deep, profound sense of loss. It paints the faith as the singular source of meaning and joy in the universe, while ignoring the fact that many ex-members find purpose, community, and fulfillment outside of the church. Brad's rhetoric implies that those who leave Mormonism are missing out on something that is truly irreplaceable, pushing the speculative claim that the church's teachings are the only path to real happiness and understanding.
Here's a blast from the past. My original reaction to Brad Wilcox's statement.
I hope you realize that if you walk away from this religion, you lose everything. You lose everything. Everything that truly matters most.
Walking away from this religion, you lose everything? Everything that truly matters most. This is designed to create a fear of the outside world and instill an us versus them narrative on the impressionable youth. The church leaders want you to feel like that you will lose everything if you leave, which is why they propagate that narrative. But it's just a fear-invoking, sweeping statement. They can't tell you that you will lose everything. They don't know. But it doesn't mean they won't try and create an environment in which, well, you might lose quite a lot.
Bednar's comments reflect the common misunderstanding that people who leave the church do so because they're offended, rather than due to intellectual, doctrinal, or personal reasons. This framing reduces the complex faith crises that many people go through to a simplistic and dismissive notion of taking offense. By categorizing someone's departure as a failing on their part, Bednar tries to negate and delegitimize the thoughtful concerns of many former members, and the issues that people have with church theology, doctrine, and practices.
Will you please help us understand why you are not actively participating in the blessings and programs of the church? I have made hundreds and hundreds of such visits. Each individual, each family, each home, and each answer was different. Over the years, however, I detected a common theme in many of the answers to my questions. Frequently, responses like these were given. Several years ago, a man said something in Sunday school that offended me, and I have not been back since. No one in this branch greeted or reached out to me. I felt like an outsider. I was hurt by the unfriendliness of this branch. I did not agree with the counsel the bishop gave me. I will not step foot in that building again as long as he is serving in that position. Many other causes of offense were cited, from doctrinal differences among adults to teasing, taunting, and excluding by youth. But the recurring theme was, I was offended by.
And our number one most damaging Mormon leader's teaching about those who leave the faith is Russell Nelson's April 2021 address, in which he expounds on the supposed benefits of living a life devoted to Jesus Christ. But those who don't succeed in this brainwashing indoctrination factory, well, he calls them lazy learners and lax disciples. He also blames doubters for not being able to choose to believe, and instructs them to stop rehearsing their doubts with other doubters.
My dear brothers and sisters, my call to you this Easter morning is to start today to increase your faith. Through your faith, Jesus Christ will increase your ability to move the mountains in your life, even though your personal challenges may loom as large as Mount Everest. Your mountains may be loneliness, doubt, illness, or other personal problems. Your mountains will vary. And yet the answer to each of your challenges is to increase your faith. That takes work. Lazy learners and lax disciples will always struggle to muster even a particle of faith. To do anything well requires effort. Becoming a true disciple of Jesus Christ is no exception.
Well, there you have it, folks. The top 10 worst Mormon teachings by church leaders about those who leave the faith. Together, these statements reveal a concerted effort by Mormon leaders to delegitimize those who leave the church. Rather than acknowledging valid reasons for departure, they attempt to depict former members as weak, deceived, rebellious, or even miserable. These harmful ideas do real damage to people's lives, and they marginalize and demonize legitimate doubts. And the irony is that these doubts have come from the church itself, teaching its members a mix of platitudes, half-truths, omissions, and plausible denials as actual history, when the reality is just the opposite. This kind of messaging is used to reinforce loyalty and obedience to the church, while vilifying those who step away, ensuring that questioning the faith remains socially and spiritually costly. Thanks so much for joining me on another episode of the Mormon News Roundup. Let me know your feedback on this particular episode. Which of these top 10 demonization of former members is the most damaging? And does this type of rhetoric still go on in the church today in your area? Let me know in the comments below. Always think celestial, and remember, no unhallowed hand can stop the Mormon News Roundup from progressing.
Where will you go?
Where do I want to go?
Where will you go?
I don't know, where do you want to go?
Where will you go?
Yeah, wherever I want.
Where will you go?
Stop saying that!
To whom shall you go?
Away from you.
What will you do?
What'll I do?
Where will you go?
I will do what I always do.
To whom shall we go?
Wherever we want.
Pause and think carefully.
Yeah, no thanks.
Leave the old ship Zion.
I'm leaving.
Will ye also go away?
Get away from me.
Where will you go? Where will you go? Where will you go?
Whatever I feel like I want to do. Gosh!
You're still here? It's over. Go home.